Yeah, recording has started. Thank you very much. So, welcome to this session on how smart organizations are creating AI agents and copilots to boost efficiency and productivity. Lots and lots of words. Uh, so, why are we doing this session? Well, the thing is, AI is evolving fast. I was just chatting with one of the people just before the session about how much things are changing, and things are changing. Even yesterday, there was an announcement. I'll talk about that later on, where there are new products and services, and it's a challenge knowing how to use the different bits of the Microsoft ecosystem and tools and agents and everything else that they provide, and for you to understand how we're going to use this to give me a productivity edge. So we're looking to help people use AI efficiently, give them a steer as to, okay, what should I use? What should I build myself? What's available? Just having an appreciation of what's available to you. And also a bit of maybe how could I use this new idea of copilots and AI agents? So that's where we're going to focus on. And to be honest, I've always been a big fan of automation. For me, there's huge amounts of benefits that we can get from automating solutions. But AI now, and I've used AI in my systems for, I mean, going back 10 years or more, I've used AI to help enhance my business solutions I've built for people. But with AI now, it's how we collaborate between humans and intelligent systems. We'll explore how AI agents, autonomous agents, and copilots can transform the way your organization works, from streamlining daily tasks to helping make you decisions. We're also going to talk about differences and some terminology, talk about different technologies, maybe give you an idea of when to use each and how to start using them. So that's what I'm aiming to do. A little bit about myself. I'm Julian Sharp. I've been involved building business solutions my entire career. And I got into the Microsoft ecosystem around Dynamics 365 CRM, and now architect solutions around mainly around Power Platform and AI. I say I've been using AI for about 10 plus years since called Azure Cognitive Services to build solutions, enhance what my system's done. But what's happening now is going to change how we actually build applications, I think, going forwards. I've been a Microsoft certified trainer now for 18 years. And I actually authored the Microsoft AI 900, which is the AI fundamentals exam prep book for Microsoft Press. However, don't buy it, it's way out of date. Microsoft said at the beginning of this, do you want to write a new version of it? I said, there's no point, it'll be out of date by the time I'm finishing. So if you can't hear me, just you'll need to disconnect and reconnect. That's probably the issue. I'm trying to track the messages. So before we get started, and here I want to know a little bit about you, what you know. I'm going to paste. You can either go to the link I'm pasting in the chat, or just go to www.menti.com and key in that code 59147812, or scan the QR code. They'll all get you into the same place. It's just a little bit understanding. It's going to help me understand where people are coming from, what experience they've got with this. So hopefully I've got 38, 40 of you already in. I can see the numbers climbing. So again, the details are that's on the screen now. How many people we got in the chat? So how many people? Oh, 100 odd people in here at the moment. So just let's get yourselves in. Don't have there's just a few questions just to help me understand what's going on. Excellent, you're in. And we'll just go through a couple of questions. So let's see what's on here. So this is one of my favorite questions, and I think it helps explain where we are. What do we use? So I've used a chat app. Do we use the word bot? Do we use chatbot? Do we use Copilot, agent, or all of the above? And for me, this is a very interesting because I mean, when I started off, I used to build chatbots using, well, we used to call them bots at the time for chat, embedded into websites. They use Azure Bot Framework, and I'm going back for 10 years on those, where we had to write code for everything, and it was hard. And everyone I built wasn't very successful because making changes to them was very, very difficult. Then Microsoft started adopting the word chatbot. We see because bots have another meaning. People will use bots for like hacking systems and bot farms. So we tried to use the word chatbot. Microsoft then, when they started embedding their own AI into Microsoft products, they started calling them Copilots. So we saw the word Copilot because the Copilot is there to help you as an assistant. And then we then sort of switched away. We built our own custom Copilots. We built our own custom Copilots. That we were custom Copilots for a while, and now we sort of settled on the word agent. Okay, so agent is where we've sort of ended up with as the generic term, but agent's bigger than just a chatbot. We're going to get into the different types of agent. But I just want to show you a number of India answer the questions. Yeah, a number of where we are. And just interesting, it depends where you first encounter this is what you'll use. I tend to use them all interchangeably. But Copilot definitely, for me, refers to some AI built into a product that Microsoft provides, where agent is often, and Microsoft will talk about agents as well. But if I'm building something myself, I'm going to refer to that as an agent. But all of the above would be my answer, because depending who you talk to, if you talk to customers and users, they will use the different terms. All right. Okay. So who's used the different ones? None. Okay. A couple of you, none. The other thing, renaming. Some of you might have used Agent Builder in the Microsoft 365 Copilot to build your own declarative agents. That's being renamed to Copilot Studio Lite. I love Microsoft naming. Copilot Studio Full is what was called Copilot Studio. Azure AI Services used to be called Copilots. That's what I first started with, and Azure Bot Framework. Luckily, none of you have had the pain of that. But we're going to see how we're going to touch on a few of these services. And what you need to understand is lots of different technologies that Microsoft have that provide us things. So that's useful for me today. So most of you use Copilot. I use Copilot every day now to help me do things. In fact, a couple of little images I've used, I generated with Copilot yesterday. You might be able to tell them because you can tell them there. So, what questions do you have? Too many. I like that one. Can you assist? Yes, it can. Should build your own agents. I think building your own agents is the right way to go. Multi-agent. I'm going to touch on multi-agent. Big architecture. Big agent was called sub-agents. For me, it's always sub-agents. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about different frameworks as well. And I agree that Copilot doesn't always give you the right answer. I saw a very funny tweet, which is a post yesterday, which said like, AI, should I eat this red cap mushroom? The AI goes, yes. That's okay. And then you're dead. And it goes, yes. Oh, I might have been wrong. Yes, they can be poisonous as well. They don't always tell you the right answer. Well, again, interesting. We'll talk about the Copilot Studio for sales. I'm not going to get into doing it because we haven't got that long, but just get into that. So it's just useful questions for me. I can carry on answering that. And if I get time at the end, I'll come back and have Q&A at the end. But okay, just leave that there and you can have some more hype. Yes and no. We'll get on to that. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to look at the difference between the different types of agent. I think I've got onto what's Copilot versus agent. I'll try to explain what an autonomous agent is. We'll get onto that. We'll give some examples where Copilots can be used, Copilots and agents can be used. Give some examples, and then we'll switch on to maybe how autonomous agents work. We're probably going to spend most of the time on the different Microsoft tools and what's in the landscape, as I put it, for how do I go build stuff? How do I use stuff? And there's lots and lots of options. And part of that is because every team at Microsoft wants to have their own Copilot or agent. So we're seeing agents pop up everywhere. Copilots pop up everywhere in Microsoft products. And it just seems to be, I've got to have one. And some are going out there, some are better than others. We'll discuss that. But we're seeing also when we're building custom Copilots, our own agents, we're actually seeing a convergence between the low code and the pro code world. And that's really what I want to talk about towards the end of the session. And finally, I'll try and give you an overview of all the different training and skilling resources around Copilots and agents. And there's a lot. And there's also a lot coming out, which we'll touch on. So first of all, what's out there? What do we have? And right now, I think this is very much you're searching around, hunting around for information. It's very difficult to actually get a precise idea of what's available because it's changing so fast. And not just that terminology is changing. What you call one thing one day is changed, and somebody, oh yeah, that's what I was talking about last week. That is changed. So first of all, I want to talk about the types of agent. Often when we break down agents, break into like these three areas. Classic chatbot with a prompt and response agent. We've got task-based agents, and we're going to talk more about autonomous agents, the difference between them. So I'm going to just go through those. We'll talk about the first two, then we'll talk about some use cases for them, then we'll talk about autonomous agents. So prompt and response agent. So prompt and response agent is something that sort of sits there, waits for you to give you a prompt and provide you a response. So if you've used Microsoft 365 Microsoft 365 Copilot in chat mode, that's what you're doing. You're giving it a prompt and it gives a response. And there's a whole thing about how you build your prompts, which I'm not going to get into. But essentially, it doesn't have a long-term goal. It's there just to serve your requests. Comes up there. It only has a short-term memory for what he did. I was doing something yesterday and it forgot where I was. It was really annoying. I had to start again because it got too far. Yeah, so thank you for So yeah, it's generally waits their response for you. So, and it can go off. What we see now, rather than simple chatbots, it can go off and connect to external services to respond. I'm going to give you a little demo of building a prompt and response agent. So, and with an agent, rather than a chatbot, chatbots tend to give you very canned response. With agents, we're going to be using generative AI to give responses. So I can build a chatbot, prompt and response agent that can go off and link into the weather service, like link into MSN weather, and build that, and it give me a response on what's the weather today. I try it. Where I live is in a place called Richmond in the UK. The trouble is when I ask it what's the weather like in Richmond, it gives me Richmond in the USA. It's not always that great, as you say. It doesn't always give the right answer. Even when I tell it not Richmond, Virginia, Richmond, UK, it still gives me Richmond in America. So key thing here about products was they're not autonomous. They're reactive, and they don't keep a long-term goal or memory. Concept of a task agent is something that executes a specific task or workflow based on a request. But it's more than just a single prompt and response. It can maybe do multiple steps, multiple actions as part of it. So it has a goal. So it tries to go do something. We often talk about it planning or reasoning and using tools. We'll see this word tool. Often we used to call them plugins. We now call them tools. Another name change. To go do things on our behalf. So connecting, that can be updating a database, sending an email, connecting to an external service like an API to do things. But it generally will stop after it's finished. It has limited autonomy. It does its task and then does it. And again, you can see this. Microsoft 365 Copilot has some task-based ability. You can ask Microsoft 365 Copilot to do things on your behalf. But it depends on that. And often we see a lot of agents. We'll see here, I mean, if we go this, I would never, ever, sorry, Thomas, ever do that. I've tried it. I've tried to use it to find flights and things like that. I've experimented, and generally I find it doesn't use that. I love Skyscanner to find my flights. I have preferences about where I go through and fly. So I've tried it. It's not been too bad, but often tells me to go to London. So no, I wouldn't. But I can see an airline building them to help them. So, as I say, copilots are, this is my definition personally. They are pre-built agents. This is a little diagram from Microsoft. Tries to show the breadth of where Microsoft's going. So they're pre-built agents and AI in Microsoft products. But what I've seen is some AI products that existed, like in AI, that Microsoft have AI builder products. They've rebranded them as Copilot features. So everything's Copilot. Because I think in Microsoft, to get ahead, you need to have a Copilot feature. I know when I do courses and exams with Microsoft, they always say, we've got to have Copilot in here. How can we test Copilot? I said, we can't. How can you test Copilot in an exam? We can, but it's we need to understand what it's done. So examples are, I mentioned Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, or even just the normal Copilot chat, the free one. They're AI, generally using generative AI to give answers. And somebody mentioned in the questions about maybe Copilot in dynamic sales or Copilot for sales. Just as a little hint on you, if you see Copilot in product name, that means it's Copilot features as part of the product. If you see Copilot for, like Copilot for security, that's typically an added license cost. They've settled on that naming. In Copilot in, part of the product, Copilot for, you've got to spend more money. And interesting, Copilot, GitHub Copilot. I'm actually teaching GitHub Copilot on Monday. Well, there's not a lot to that. It's actually really quite powerful. I'm very, very impressed with GitHub Copilot now that I've actually learned how to use it properly. And that's actually one thing about Copilots. Superficially, I can just go ask simple questions and get responses, and I can get a lot of productivity changes. But when you really delve into the capabilities, and this is what I've done with GitHub Copilot the last couple of weeks, it's amazing how much it can really help you. I can get a bit of capability and increase in productivity and experience just by writing better prompts. That's part of it. But actually, there's a whole load more which you can really make it. I didn't understand how GitHub Copilot works and how it worked to generate code. I do now. I know how to make it really give me very good answers and do things on my behalf now. It's actually got agents within it. This is something else you'll see. We're talking about agents within Microsoft 365 Copilot and agents within GitHub Copilot. They can work autonomously on my behalf. So just on here, this is how Microsoft phrases things. They talk about, I quite like this as a way of doing it on here. Where's my slides gone? So it's human-centered companion. It's an assistant. So Copilot is very much the assistant. It's your prompt and response. It's your tasks. Helps you automate your work. And a key thing here is that Copilots work best when you treat them like a teammate. Give them the right context. Give them clear goals, tools to act. But you're giving human oversight to it. And the trends are consistent. Humans plus AI is better than either alone. So when you're building using Copilots, you need to think about we're using these collaboratively, not just for automation. Yeah, and you can use AI for automation. I'm a big fan of that. There's huge opportunities there. But if I start bringing more AI, more Copilot in there, I can get even better results. Now, before I go on, I just want to. This is quite a complex slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, because I think it helps you understand if you are going to use Copilot or Copilot Chat, how it actually works. So what happens is when you write your prompt in natural language, whether that's in Teams or in Microsoft Copilot, what it does is it adds some extra information. We have an orchestrator behind the scenes. What that orchestrator does is pulls relevant context together from the document you've got open, other files in your system, and other information. And what it bases on, a lot of that on, is the Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph, I don't know if you know, is a thing that sits under Microsoft 365. Every time you send an email, every time you have a Teams meeting, every time you open up a document in SharePoint, that's all tracked. And that gives you context in what it uses. So the graph is used to do that. And it builds an index up from everything that's going on within your organization so it can ask about chats. We can also add in extra tools or plugins. So I can say, okay, go off to Dataverse and use that as a data source for my query, or use some other service. So we talk about knowledge sources that we can use and tools that can do things on our behalf. And it brings all those together. So it brings everything together, adds it all up, and then sends that prompt off to the language model. It will also do some post-processing and safety checks to make sure you're not going to produce any or get any data they're not meant to do. And as admin, you can control how far Copilot goes. I mean, that's a whole other subject, but it's very important. When I've taught people about Microsoft 365, these are the questions I get asked. How do I control it? How do I make sure we're not going to leak data? And it'll apply things like Microsoft Purview restrictions, sensitivity labels, and you can also, therefore, and you can, as an admin, I can restrict where it goes. Look, so I don't want them looking at that SharePoint site because that's got some very sensitive information in. I don't want that information being leaked out to the rest of my organization. So when you're in Microsoft 365 using Copilot, it grounds. We talk about grounding its prompts, it's grounding its responses in our enterprise content in our tenant using the Microsoft Graph. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but on how that, just understand that this is how it works. Now, when we go to see Copilot, we can see it in a number of different ways. You'll see Copilot exposed to you in different user interfaces. Yes, I can go to Microsoft 365 Copilot. I can go launch it up, and I can go launch. Here I'm in my Microsoft 365 Copilot. Things to notice up here, I've got my little enterprise data protection because I'm signed into my Microsoft Entra tenant. So that tells me my data isn't going to be released anywhere. And I can go start asking questions, and it's going to use the information in my SharePoint sites, my OneDrive, my emails, Teams meetings to give answers on that. So you can use it as a full focus area like that with Microsoft 365. You can also see it as a sidebar. In app sidebars, you'll see that again. If anybody's in Dynamics, you open Dynamics up to talk about Wandering apps, they just pop up. You spend all the time closing it down. Or you can see it work in line. So you're doing something and it's prompting you. It's inside your workflow, inside your form or application that you're using. And then you get very context sensitive about what you're doing. Again, this is what I'm talking about GitHub Copilot, for instance. It very much looks at exactly where your cursor is in the code. That's to say what to do. It looks at the code before and after where your cursor is and says, okay, yeah, that's where I'm in. That's going to be very specific content to give me the right help in here. So when you're using Copilot or getting your users to use Copilot, you need to make sure they pick the right mode so they get the right level of context so they can help them. And when we look at some examples here, I mean, yeah, how could I use Copilot within my organization? So a few here, Teams. I'm in a Teams meeting, help prepare an agenda. Create some design. Now I've used it, so I've actually done this. I created some little diagrams, which you're going to see later on. Actually, some of the ones, the prompt and response agent before that was generated by Copilot. I wanted a quick image just to show what we do. I can use it to draft documentation, draft content, build a presentation. And then we can get into automation. You can automate what we do. This is where we get into the agent side to maybe help us do things, maybe automate doing things to relieve me of having to do the drudgery tasks. Well, this is where I'm a big fan of automation. Let's automate the repetitive, automate the simple stuff, allow humans to have input where needed. And you'll see there's a number of pre-built agents built into Copilot Chat that you can use. And Microsoft is expanding this all the time. There are new agents coming in. And if I just go back in here, if anybody's not used these, I love the researcher agent that we've got in here. I go ask it to go generate me things. It goes off. It takes quite a while. Go build me things. There's an analyst agent. If you've not got those, they're very, very useful. You can also go create your own agents, or there's a number of other agents. There's one here, I use Microsoft 365 Admin Agent. It's one of the pre-built agents I can just go use to go help me do things. So there's a number of pre-built agents. And we've also got things like Dynamics 365 agents as well that are available for us. So Microsoft is giving those. You just have to know they're there and know what's available for use. For you, there's an employee self-service agent, helps do things. Project manager agent, which I think is not. Oh, that's users planner. And helps you go do things. So you can start just with Copilot, and we can go extend Copilot. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on as well. Especially Microsoft 365 Copilot. But let's move on now to autonomous agents. What's the definition of these? So compared to task and prompt response agents, autonomous agents are persistent. The idea is they sit there and they react on your behalf. Okay, you're not triggered by a human prompt. They can be triggered by something happening in the system. The idea is they're there to maintain a long-term objective. They're there to sit there and they'll trigger autonomously and do things. They'll often be bigger and they're can monitor different things and take actions on your behalf. So, example, an AI assistant that schedules meeting on my behalf, but it learns proactively from my preferences. So again, I think somebody was asking about in the chat about flight task agent. Yeah, get it to do more work. And get passing off to agents that are very specific to do things. So the tool I just showed, that was Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that's just Microsoft 365 Copilot, that one there. Yeah. So that's the paid for license. I have a paid for license for it on that one. Yeah. Okay. So autonomous agents is really what the big noise at the moment is, because it's bringing together agents to do things on our behalf and take actions. It's really the next stage of agents, and we've got lots of potential scenarios where you can use agents. Where in the past I've probably written some automation to do some of this, but especially things like Power Automate, which we were discussing before we started, I write little flows, say on this, go do this. But the trouble is when you write things like Power Automate workflows, you have to tell it exactly what to do. Here, I'm going to use an agent that's going to use its own reasoning to decide what to do. So monitors, I'd love this. My background is call centers and building call center systems. That's how I got to CRM. That's how I got here originally. So I've built this where handling call and queues and queues of emails and prioritizing. It's actually how I first got to doing AI, is prioritizing incoming emails by looking at the content of the emails and classifying the emails. God, it's such a work. Now I'd use an autonomous agent to do all of this. It'd be so much easier. I mean, I spent weeks building this. I just give an autonomous agent to route it. Okay, prioritize. Does this email need responding to? Does this email? Who needs to deal with this email? Can I automate a response to the customer? Um, can I do lots of things on my behalf to manage it? We're typically managed by individuals, especially on the low hanging fruit, the simple stuff. Let's go do that. And again, monitor what's going on, maybe even generate FAQs based on patterns. It looks, we've got a load of questions about this coming in. Let's generate an FAQ from all the answers that all my agents do, which currently we have to do manually. I can use in DevOps. So this again, deploying stuff. I have something to detect issues, automatically fix things. And actually, it's one of the courses I teach, AI 102. We actually build a multi-agent solution to do that. Yeah, you can get not Copilot itself. I think with Microsoft 3, with Copilot Studio, I can build an agent that can connect to my user tool to send an email, but not necessarily. I don't think Microsoft 365 Copilot can, Thomas. Maybe another example is finance, just flagging up unhealthy or fraudulent transactions. In the past, things like Dynamics 365 Business Central has fraud detection in it, but again, we can go a lot further. It can detect more different patterns. We can use it for things like compliance, making sure we're tracking things. You can track all the logs and make sure things are happening in the proper way. So I can see a number of use cases for autonomous agents to do what a lot of people do manually. I've got a friend who works in fraud and compliance, and I keep telling him, I'm actually going out for dinner with him tonight. I keep telling him he's going to be out of a job eventually. Because it's going to help him do his job better, is actually what I normally phrase it. We don't normally get rid of people. What we say is allow them to do the higher level stuff, to do more, because the agent's going to, we're talking about here, co-pilots and agents working together with you on that. So that's some scenarios. There's a different type of agents. I'm now going to switch. About halfway through. Good timing. We'll switch on to the different technologies. And when we look at Microsoft, we have a number of different areas. We've got the stuff that's end user, such as Microsoft 365 Copilot, which we just talked about. Sort of we're using natural language, we're creating problems. But Microsoft is adding in more capabilities there. We'll talk a bit more about that. We've got Copilot Studio. We can start building our own agents with low code. And I can do that in Copilot Studio, if you've not touched that. And a bit in Azure AI Foundry, actually. I'm going to demo building a bot without writing any code. Well, not an agent. Bad Julian. And then we've also got the ability to write in code, where you can start building. And literally, again, this is a slide I used. I was in Sweden, in Gothenburg, in September for a conference, the Nordic Summit. And I used this slide in that summit, and I've had to go change things. It's only like 3 or 4 weeks ago, because we've now got a thing called the Microsoft Agent Framework, which has brought all the different SDKs and things together, and I'll talk more about that later. So we have a number of different ways, and the challenge is, what do I start with? Where do I go? And I think if I was going back 6 months ago, it's like, yeah, you were stuck in your little silo. So if you start with Microsoft 365 Copilot, you're stuck there. That's changed. especially as an announcement yesterday, I can now build agents in Copilot Studio that talk to agents built in Azure AI Foundry. I can now build agents in Copilot Studio that can now, well, this is going to happen. They'll be able to then deploy into Microsoft 365 Copilot and make them available there. So I'm not stuck in my silos. The ability to use across this and use the right tool or the most appropriate tool is based on the skills, experience I have, you can do that. So we've got stuff for end users, for makers, although I hate the term maker, and for code first. So it's low code versus pro code, really. And there's a number of different frameworks available that we've got, and we'll talk more about those later on. But just understanding what's there. Okay. So just checking up on the chat. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't trust it. But then what you can do is you can build in approval checks. You can build in checks. So you don't do this. Can I deploy an agent to Teams myself? Yes. So pretty much anything that's in Microsoft 365 Copilot is available in Teams. If I build a Copilot in Copilot Studio, so if I build an agent in Copilot Studio, I can deploy that into Teams. The issue was with code first ones, I couldn't until the Microsoft Agent Framework comes out. So the Agent Framework allows me to deploy anywhere. It used to be I had to use what's called the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, but that's now been consumed into the Agent Framework. So I can deploy anywhere. Yes, they are. So low-code can be good enough. And I think this is one of the things we're seeing is a lot of the capabilities that were in the code first is now appearing in Copilot Studio. The lines are blurring. And I'm going to show you some differences later. There can be. It depends how much. It all comes down to how much control you want. And I'm a control freak, so I like control. And I sort of sit in that. Generally, when I work on projects, I sit on the boundary between Cloud Platform and Azure and AI. So I sort of sit in both camps. That's I'm not really a Microsoft 365 Copilot person. On there. So when we get some different tools, I'm going to show you some. So I'll show you some in Thomas. So Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot. You can go in here. It's a personal productivity agent. I've shown you some of the agents that they have, analyst and researcher. Remember, it typically will access the open documents and also other information from the Microsoft Graph. If you have the free version, the Microsoft 365 Copilot free, you're not paying for a license. It only works in the current document. If you have the paid for license, which is what, $30 per user per month, you get access to all your documents and the Microsoft Graph information. That's the big difference between them. If you use like Copilot in Word and you haven't paid for Copilot, you just get access to doing things in Word, in that Word document. Typical capabilities: summarize emails, summarize document, generate content on that. And there's a number of pre-built agents that we can use. So if I go into here, I've mentioned already, I've got the researcher and agent. So this is just the Microsoft, to get access to this is the Microsoft 365 Copilot app. It's installed automatically on my computer. I don't know why. I can't remember if I installed it or Microsoft installed it for me. I can go see all the other agents here. So here's the ones some I mentioned. There's some the ones I showed you: Career Coach, Idea Coach, surveys, and then some also third-party services. So I'm using I've been playing around the Microsoft 365 admin one to help me manage my tenant. This is a little third-party one I used. You can also go create agents. This is going to be called Agent Builder. Oh no, they've actually called it Copilot Studio. It used to be called how was it called? Oh, I've just called the name. It was called Agent Builder. Now it's called Copilot Studio Lite. Well, I'm not sure if that name's actually fully done, but we're going to build agents in here. So just so we can go build stuff in here with Copilot Studio Lite from in here. So we build them with chat. The other thing that's changed, the roles. So up until recently, there was a Copilot for sales and a Copilot for service and a Copilot for finance, which were additional cost options. They allowed you to bring, say, Copilot into add Copilot capabilities, not just to Dynamics, but to Salesforce or to Zendesk or ServiceNow. They were an additional cost. It's been announced that they are going to be moved into the paid for Copilot. So for instance, I'm going to get Copilot for sales as a role in my Microsoft 365 Copilot when that's done. It's been announced, I'm not sure it's coming yet. So we've got these new roles that they're talking about as agents to help us do things. Yeah, they can't, Frederick. That's a real problem. If you start with Copilot Studio Lite, um, here. So, no, they're Copilot. So answer Matthias, very well done. No, these are native ones, the research analysis. So we'll see, and these are all native agents. All these here, built by Microsoft, they're native. So analyst, researcher, they're there. So different ways. Let's just talk about Copilot Studio Lite. So allows me to build agents, what we call declarative agents, where I just give it a bit of text on that. You need to sign in. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know I can see them. Maybe it's a painful license. I don't know. So you go build them. Typically, you use these for small little teams. They're not enterprise, because how do I manage the deployment of them? Copilot Studio Full is what used to be called Power Virtual Agents. So Power Virtual Agents was renamed to Copilot Studio when it got generative AI capabilities. So Copilot Studio is just copilotstudio.microsoft.com. Allows you to go build agents. You can start a trial for free, play around with it. The only thing is you can't publish now from a trial. You're stuck in just building and testing. But it allows you, these are what we call low code tools, or even no code really, for Copilot Studio. I don't need to write any code, but we'll see later on about how I can extend them. The fact is, with Copilot Studio Full, I can connect to a wide variety of data sources, knowledge sources, or essentially adding grounding data. And I can also connect to tools to perform actions on my behalf. So with Copilot Studio Full, I can go build things. And we can deploy these in a number of different ways. I can deploy them to a website, or I can deploy them to Facebook, deploy them to Teams on that. So, yeah. And to answer your question, ChatGPT, Hubert, all of these are using Azure OpenAI language models. So Azure OpenAI language models are Microsoft's implementation of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is built by OpenAI. Microsoft has a thing called the Azure OpenAI service, which is Microsoft's implementation of those. And yes, we can use GPT 4.0, 4.5 if we want. So if I go into Copilot, just to point there, say if I go to Copilot right now, go back to my chat, I've got it switched to GPT. I think it's by GPT 4.0, but I can switch to GPT 5 if I want to toggle there now. I think it's GPT 4.0 or 4.5 set by default. Yeah, if I turn it off, yeah, I think it's using GPT 4. Not sure if it's 4 or 4.5. So just to understand that. So yeah, we use those underneath. Deploying agents. Okay, so I'll talk about this. So when you deploy a Copilot Studio agent, it's not executable. It runs in the cloud, and it costs. You pay. You're going to pay whatever you do. So in Copilot Studio, to deploy it, I can say where it's I can deploy it into a website, which just give me a bit of JavaScript. It's actually running as a cloud service, or even any of these agents. They're running in the cloud service. You're not. So when I say deploy, I mean I'm just pushing. So when I deploy, say, Copilot Studio into Teams, I was actually just making it available in Teams. It's running in the Power Platform. So you have to pay, and you're paying for the number of messages or sessions that are going on. Microsoft hosts it. Now, when you want to get in, say, when you want to host it yourself, this is where we're going to go into things like the Azure AI Foundry. I can then deploy it as well, and I'll talk about a little bit about that when we get there. So declarative agents. This is a nice little diagram I like to use, which explains how agents work, or chatbots work. Essentially, I mentioned there's an orchestrator which sits there and decides what to do. Okay, handling that. The foundation models are our GPT models, GPT-4, GPT-5. And what we have is your orchestrator sits there, it handles the prompt and decides what to do. It decides, okay, what knowledge am I going to use? And when I build declarative agents, I can add in knowledge. So knowledge can be extra instructions I give it. So, okay, this is how I want you to behave as an agent. Or they can be documents I want you to refer to on that. And tools are things that we can do. So tools is, you may have heard, this is a relatively new term, tools. It was plugins before, where we can connect to different things. Like I can run a Power Automate flow. I can go call to an API. And we're going to talk about MCP servers. But essentially, the orchestrator sits there. So if I build a declarative agent, say, deploy it to Microsoft 365, like I'm going to build in Copilot Studio Lite, it runs then, it runs part of the Copilot, and Copilot will decide whether to use the agent or not. It'll say, okay, I can handle this. I don't need the agent for it. And it works it out itself. But when you build declarative activation, you really got only access to changing or configuring those purple areas, the knowledge and tools. But you define what to do, define the grounding capability of the agents. I'll give a little demo of that in AI Foundry. When I build a full custom agent, I can actually get into a lot more depth. I've got full control over which model I use. And actually, again, I think it was announced this week that in Copilot Studio, I can choose which model to use. Right now, I think by default, it uses GPT 4.0 or 4.0. But we can say, actually, no, I want to use that model. I can actually also use models from Azure AI Foundry. So I can even get into fine-tuning models, if you know what that is. You can use those. So building custom agents, whether it's Copilot Studio or with code, I've got a lot more control. I can control how the orchestrator works. And this is where we may get into like multi-agent systems. I can decide how's it triggered. I've got that autonomy side. How far? What does it do? I can also say connect to other agents and create multi-agent solutions where people are going. Agents work. I always when I teach chatbots. Chatbots work well when they're tightly defined. You try and build a generic chatbot, it failed because it didn't know how to answer. It's the same with agents. You want your agent to do one thing and do it well. And so rather than building a big agent to do lots of things, let's build lots of smaller agents and connect them together. So just to answer your question quickly on that, if you're in Copilot, you see this little icon up here, this little enterprise data protection. In Copilot, that says my data is not going outside my tenant. Okay. If I just go and I haven't got Copilot running. First looks like the basic, I haven't got it installed. If I just go to the basic Copilot, or I just go say start in Edge, and I'm not signed in. So if I do copilot.microsoft.com, and I'm not signed in, all right, okay, I'm not signed in here. So I'm not seeing that little icon. If I'm not seeing that little enterprise data icon, worry, it's your data can get used. If you're using Bing Copilot, which is essentially what this is I'm not signed in. Actually, if I go to this one, yeah, Copilot sidebar. Yeah, well, I don't think I'm signed in on here. So it's definitely, if you're just using it straight, that's going to be exposed. So always look out for that little icon. Am I protected? Enterprise data protection. All right. Okay. Internal agents. Again, it depends what game. It depends on your deployment. Doing things in Microsoft 365 Copilot, I'm not sure. In Agent Builder or Microsoft Copilot, I'm not sure the license. If I'm building in Copilot Studio or Azure AI Builder, there's going to be costs. And yes, it can be open-ended depending on how it is. And again, that's down to controlling anything. I think in Copilot Studio, you buy packs of sessions. So they've changed it recently. You buy Copilot credits essentially in Copilot Studio for Power Platform, and you use those up. So you got control that way. If you're in Azure AI, which we're going to talk about next, then you've got lots of monitoring tools. So I want to talk about Azure AI Foundry now. So Azure AI Foundry is Microsoft has brought together. So don't be scared about Azure. Typically in Azure, I used to have to build in the Azure portal and go build lots of resources and things like that. I had to understand different places. What Microsoft does is brought everything into the Azure AI Foundry. Allows you to manage my models, allows you to build agents, test models, test manage, and even more importantly, monitor them, evaluate them. So it's a really powerful tool for building AI-based solutions and also agents. And I'm going to demonstrate building an agent. It has a thing called the Azure AI Foundry Agent Service, which allows me to build very, very complex here. Very, very more complex agents, which allow me to connect to lots of different knowledge and tool services in both Microsoft 365 and Azure. We can have content safety. Content safety is a service to protect you through from prompt hacking, but also like the content, hateful content, and things like that. And all of it's within a proper governance mechanism as well. So it allows me to use it. So Azure AI Foundry, I can quickly go in and build multi-agent solutions that can talk together. Typically, I'm going to build this for more complex systems. And then from deployment, I can choose where to deploy it. So I can deploy it into Azure Container Instance. So deploy it containers, or I can deploy it into a web app, or even a Kubernetes cluster. But again, to answer your question about deployment, it's all deployed into a cloud service. And we have a Foundry Agents SDK that makes writing code really simple. Okay, I can write code for an agent in a few steps, and then basically just change the logic in here and do this. So we have got, again, if we use the Foundry Agents SDK, again, it makes management and deployment the agents even easier. One thing I've been surprised about, how as I've gone over the last year, even the last year, how much the Foundry and the Foundry Agent service and SDK have really helped creating agents and just taking the pain away. Just concentrate on what my agent wants to do rather than building all the prompt and response logic. Oh, how do I handle all that? Handling all the orchestration. It does it all for me, especially when I get into things like handling tools. So when you're building an agent, you need to understand, okay, I've got my inputs that come from my user or my triggers. So again, we can have either prompt response agents, task-based agents, or autonomous agents. So how's it triggered? You can get agents messaging each other. And the agent itself, it handles, okay, the agent essentially in Foundry connects to the language model, it handles the prompt, it takes some instructions, and it also chooses its tools. So tools are things that allow it to take action. And this is where we've been getting at, allow it to take action, access memory, retrieve data, and then the agent uses all that, calls the language model, and then produces nice structured output. So I'm going to give you a very, very quick demo of building in the Azure AI Foundry just to show you, not to scare you off. So what I'm going to do is going to go to my Azure AI Foundry. Here I'm in the it's ai.azure.com. And I've already created, and the nice thing about this is it creates the resources for me. So behind here, it's deployed. I went and created a project. So I created a new project, and it deploys all the Azure endpoints for me. I don't need to know how to do that. I can just start using them. And what I've got is I can go build some models. So what I'm going to do is, here's my model catalog. I've got access to all the different models, both Microsoft and non-Microsoft. This is one thing you get with the Foundry. I've got access to lots and lots of different models. I can choose the right model for my purpose, and I can show them. So I've got Grok now, I've got Meta, I've got from lots of different places. So I'm going to do GPT-4o. So I can do that. There's a chat completion model. You see, I've also got multimodal models, the speech to text and image generation. So I go here, go deploy a model, first stage. I'm deploying it in Sweden Central. There's only a few places I'm going to do it. So I use this one. I'm going to deploy it on standard. Just reduce the costs, reduce the tokens down when I want it. Yeah, dynamic code. I've got a content safety filter. Has it filtered the data using my standard one in there? Dynamic content. Deploy that. So that's going to make my model available. And now I can go use that model and play around. So I go in. So what I'm going to do now is my model. I can go open it in the playground and try it out. And it's just test it out with my sample prompts. What I'm going to do is go to agents. I'm going to create myself a little agent, which is going to use data. Here's my agent, Sage ID, give it a name, say demo. Okay, I'm going to say what deployment we're going to use. I'm going to use that GPT-4o model, so I get to choose it. Here I'm going to give it some instructions. So I'm going to give it some instructions, tell it how to behave and what it's going to do. So this agent here, so it says an agent for corporate expenses. Answer questions about a policy, and then it says, okay, when you want to submit an expense claim, it says get their email address. So it's going to go and do this on my behalf. So I've done that there. And what I'm going to do is add some knowledge in. So I'm going to add some, here's got a knowledge. Actually, I'm not going to go into knowledge. I'm going to add it, just upload a file, which I've got. It's just an expense policy document. So let's go grab that. Expense policy, it's just a Word document. It talks about the expense policy, and I'm going to create a store for that. Get a name, create a new vector store name. Okay, and I'm going to upload and save that. It's going to go generate, it's going to index that document for me. And I've actually now got an agent. This is even in AR, Azure AI, I've built an agent. So I've got that there, and I can just go try it now. Here's my agent, lots of other things in here. go try it in the playground. So I'm going to click try it in the playground, and I'm going to say, okay, what's the maximum claim from there? So I'm just going to start chatting, use it, and off it's going to go, and hopefully it's gone there. It's I don't know if you saw that. It's in a reference file. It's gone to my expenses policy document, and it's gone. It's used that information there, and I can actually go in here and see it's really nice. See actually how it worked. This is something you lose in the low code, the ability to track exactly how it's going. Actually, use the file search tool to go get that document and the data that came back and how it's actually worked. So that's a very, very quick demo on here. Let's just say, okay, let's get it to actually do something now. So I want to say, I want to submit a claim for a meal. And it's going to probably now, how did it work this out? Well, only from the instruction. It said the instruction told me what to do. So get their email address, description, and the amount claimed. So I'm going to say Fred. So I start putting, okay, what's my Fred? I'm Fred today. And I'm going to say breakfast cost me $20. So I'm just going to do this. And it's even prompting me, and it's working out what to do. In the past, I've had to create each of those prompts and responses. Here, because it's using agents and generative AI, it's done this. Oh, I didn't set the, yeah, I did. There was something else I did. I forgot, as a step I missed, which was to basically set the code interpreter to go. It'll generate Python on the fly. So to create the file, which I asked it to do, I can use. It generates the Python on the fly. Just didn't enable it. I forgot to go do that. But yeah, the code interpreter. But it'll have built. It should have built that file and saved it for me. I missed that step. So just go adding in a tool to go create a code interpreter. I think all I need to do was do this. Just save that will work. Yeah, if I just do that, that's work. We've now got a code interpreter. Let me just try that again. I have to claim for a meal. And it's now going to go, yeah, so put email address in. Actually, I'm going to put them both in, so if it does that there. Yeah, so it's now created the file for me. It's done things. Now that could have gone and done something. I could have gone called an API to do something. I just told it to create a file, but it could have gone and done something on that. So that's just a little demo building a this. Yeah, yeah. Okay, this is where you get into that's good stuff. If you want to like get more documents, we can use things like Azure AI Search. Azure AI Search is the ability to extract information from documents in context. So maybe we talk about cracking the documents. There's a lot of different ways we can do this. But yeah, there's not. It can. But I think out the box, it can read Word. It can probably read PDFs out the Word out the box. I'd have to go look. Again, that's changing all the time. Okay. Yeah, the demo. So I could have done that in Copilot Studio. Yes, Herbert, I could have done for that. But I just want to show Azure AI Builder because again, if a lot of people see Copilot Studio, I'll show you can do it the same in Azure, but you get to see a lot more what's happening behind the side. So when I look at the different tools, I put this together to try and say, okay, when should I use each one? And this isn't hard. This isn't hard, fast rules. It's just some guidance. Where to go and the tools you need. But you can see actually when I get to the Foundry, I can do stuff with low code. But typically we do things in the Foundry because I want to do more orchestration. I want to use maybe different models. But again, we're seeing changes where Copilot Studio can now use some of the Azure AI Foundry models. We're not just restricted to GPT 4.0 or 5. We'll be able to choose different models. In the past, for multi-agent, I was very restricted in Copilot Studio. You can do it now. It's not great, but it's coming back. It's getting better. So actually, multi-agents coming to Copilot Studio full. The lines between these are blurring about where you do. And the fact that I can do different, I can create agents now that can start talking to each other with what's called A to A. I think that's going to be available for us. So let's throw that one at you to say, okay, where do you go? So when you're building autonomous agents, I want to compare, say, if I want to build autonomous, what can I do with just some slight different things to trigger them off? With Copilot Studio, we create triggers. So I can have an autonomous agent Copilot Studio. We add triggers to the Copilot Studio to say when to trigger it off. Very similar to Power Automate triggers. So if you're familiar with Power Automate triggers, you'll get that concept, triggering when something happens. And we can call different tools. Foundry, we can again trigger them automatically with agent workflows, which can be a number of different options, one of which is Azure Logic Apps can be used to trigger them, but there's a number of options on there. And we can also get into custom code as well as tools. And actually, This is probably one of the little differences, the different tools that we have available for us. You saw me use the code interpreter, the Azure AI Foundry, which allows it actually generates the Python code automatically do things. I could have gone in and had a look at the Python code it used. With Copilot Studio, we can use the Power Platform connectors to do things. So connected, we can connect to APIs, and you can do the same in Azure AI Foundry. What we're seeing now, though, so just understand there's actually code interpreters now being added to Copilot Studio recently as well. But there's a slight differences between them. But what we're seeing now is a move towards using a thing called the Model Context Protocol. You may have people talked about MCP. So MCP is a tool. Well, from our agent perspective, they are a type of tool, but they're a very, very powerful tool, because what they do is they separate out the tool, what it does, from the agent. It uses a standard protocol, set of rules and formats to decide how to call the agent. Agent knows how to call the MCP protocol server. So think of the MCP server, something that does something. I can call it to do things. It can call it. I can have. There's lots of MCP servers out there. There's actually an MCP server for Learn, from Microsoft Learn. We can use call. I want to know something about some training or other things or documentation. I can use the MCP server, so I can very easily go add into my agent the ability to go query stuff in Microsoft Learn. There's MCP for Dataverse. There's MCP for SharePoint that we can use. Microsoft has built a whole load of these that we could use. But the great thing about them is, I can say I want to connect to this MCP server. I don't need to say very much about it, because the MCP server defines what it does. And if the MCP server has more things added to it, I don't need to change anything in the agent. Essentially, the MCP server says, I can do this. I can do this on your behalf. So it's very much gone down, because if I go back, the way before was to create lots of different tools. I need a tool for this. I'm going to connect to that and connect to this. And then I had to make my instructions and my orchestration in my agent to handle when to use each one. Now I just say, let's just use the MCP service. And then it works out what to use. Essentially, my agent will determine, it'll look at the MCPs, firstly, the MCP server goes, it publishes what it can do. And they say, I can use it for that. So it decouples things. It's a very nice way of working. It's a lightweight connector to expose data or services. So rather than me calling APIs now, which I've probably done in the past with the connector, I'll create an MCP server and call that. We see this being very much wherever it goes. And MCP came from Agentic. It was only really first talked about in March or April. It was in Microsoft products in June, July. But yeah, it's actually very interesting, because I was actually going to come on to that, Hubert, what you said about where to start, because I don't think it matters anymore, to be honest. It used to, because if I start one place, I can then go to the other now. Before, I was very much in my silos about Copilot Studio, or if I wanted to do multi-agent, I had to use a thing called a semantic kernel. If I go back pre-June, if I wanted to do multi-agent, I had to use semantic kernel, which is an SDK. And actually, it's Ignite. I was at Ignite in November in Chicago, and everything was about semantic kernel. That was the new big thing. It's not anymore. It's still good. I love the semantic kernel. It's very, very powerful. It gives me loads of control, especially around multi-agent and doing things. But we've now moved towards the Agent Foundry service or Copilot Studio. Some of those capabilities are now there. So that's what I want to say. I'm not limited anymore. And I think this has been the big thrust over the last 2 or 3 months of where we go. The trouble is, when I see that, because I think I work across both the Power Platform and the Azure side. I see both sides. I can see it coming together. But often when you work within Microsoft works at nice boundaries. Azure AI Foundry agent is within Azure. Copilot Studio is within Power Platform. And there's little bits on doing that. But I would always say, start with Copilot Studio, because what's happening, the terms are coming together. We're using the same terminology like tools in both now. So I don't think it matters. But it depends where you want to go. It depends how much code. I would start code, but the issue is okay, where's it hosted? How much is it going to cost? Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think the cost is a big issue, Thomas. And how is it going to be used? Which is why this is personally why I like Azure AI Foundry, because I've got much better control over the cost of this. So I want to finish off with just the range of training now, because I say Microsoft has these nice little, they work in silos, even internally in Microsoft. These are some of the courses that touch on agents. So there's a bit on the AI 900, which is now being renamed the Introduction to Azure AI, that talks about agents. Pretty much do what I just did in the Copilot Foundry. I think I actually took that from the that little demo is one you'll do in the AI 900 if you do the demo. The bigger course is the AI 102, which is the Microsoft Azure AI Engineer, which is a course I teach, which is actually going into Azure AI Foundry. It goes into building a Foundry and Foundry agents, as well as some of the other services. The 3016 is about generative AI apps, but the real big one, the real one I love is the 3026 about developing agents on Azure. It is a little out of date because things are changing all the time. And if you do want to go into semantic kernel, that's a slightly older course. Now, those are pretty much one-day courses. The AI 102 is a 5-day course. It's actually really worthwhile if you want to start building stuff. Power Platform, we haven't got a great deal at the moment. All right. There's the PL7008, which is about basically building agents in Copilot Studio, but it's really not that big. I was actually on a call with Microsoft. We're going to completely redo that course for the beginning of next year. I'm going to hopefully be doing that. But Microsoft things take a while. I'm building some other courses. You're going to see a lot of new courses coming next year on that. There's also at Readynez, we do a lot of one-day courses. I've historically done these one in a day, like agent in a day, app in a day, as well as some other beginner and more advanced in a day courses. So like the idea of one day, do things. In fact, the PL7008 is a one-day course as well. I actually wrote that for Microsoft, but it's over a year old, so it's slightly out of date. So I wrote that PL7008 for them. Yeah, and there's also applied skills. So yeah, the PL7008 is associated with the applied skill, and there's going to be, watch out next month at Ignite, there'll be a new announcement from some more applied skills coming out as well. I would recommend you start with AI. If you're brand new to this, AI 900 is a good course. When you get into the Copilot side in modern work, there's a whole range of courses. All of these are either one day or half day. Some are aimed at business leaders, such as MS 4019. Some are aimed at just using their end user courses, or some are aimed at setting up for an administrator. And there's also one which is extending in code, which is on 40. Which one is it? It was one about, 4017, which I teach as well, extending Microsoft 365 Copilot with a bit of code. Or no, 4022. There's a number of code, but they're very much aimed around Microsoft 365 Copilot and how we extend that or tune that or configure that. They're mostly one day or half day courses. And again, some of these have applied skills associated with them. Again, these are constantly changing. These are being added and removed all the time because things are changing in the product team. It's literally a sprint at the moment. Things are coming out all the time. Other than that, there's lots of other Copilot related or agent courses. Like I'm teaching the GitHub Copilot on Monday, and I'm seriously impressed with that as a product, about what it can do to help me. The A020, I actually wrote a blog post on this with GX300 and AZ2007. They're basically about GitHub Copilot, but do that. Different viewpoints, very much around Visual Studio focused. There's one, again, one for Fabric. There's one for Copilot for security. So if you're a security person, I recommend either the other two, if you're in tune, or the Copilot for security on that one. So there's a lot of this. I'm not sure we're making the slides. Oh, I'll talk about that AB100 in a second. I'll do that at the end. Load of other resources. Now, I'm not sure if we're making these slides available, but what I'll do is I've got these links. What I'll do is I'll paste the links into the chat. I'm not sure if I can share this. I'm not sure if the slides we share. Ask the question. I haven't been told if it's being made available. If not, I'll post it in here. I'll do that, but I'll post these links in here. So I sort of get into, I'll run over a little bit, sorry. So hopefully I've given you some information, what's the difference between the, give you some context. That's what this is about. Because the hardest thing is, where do I start? What will these mean? What should I use? Give you a bit of context around different types of agents, the different types of capabilities within Microsoft, and the skilling that's available. But right now, the skilling is changing a lot. And there's lots and lots of stuff coming out. So questions. Let me ask you some questions about the exam. So there's a new AB100 exam. AB stands for AI business. So Microsoft has merged. They've done some internal merging. Now we're not going to have AB. There's an AB 900 coming out as well, which is really about managing Microsoft 365. It's going to replace the MS 900. Huge demand for this. So the AB 100 is a AI business solutions, agentic AI business solutions system solution architect. So it's very much around. It's very, very broad. So it's Dynamics plus Power Platform plus Copilot Studio plus Azure AI Foundry. Lars. So it's broad. However, I don't think I worked on setting this up and I worked on the exam, so I can't really say anything. But let me go find. I'll find you a link on somebody's actually posted a link on it on this. I'll grab that link. So EY posted on it. Oh, here it is. Let me give you this. If you want hints, I'll paste this in the chat. He's posted on that on his experience and what it covered. So hints for that on there. Let me go see if I can find those links. Oops, no. Let's see if I can go grab those links and paste them in the chat. I'll do that, and the slides on there. I thought I've got them ready, but obviously I haven't. Let's go find them. Yeah, so I'm just going to paste all those links. Those are all the links up. There's different resources, different things you can learn. There's different levels. There's some that are aimed at partners. There's one of those which is a partner one. But Microsoft is literally throwing everything at this now. They're making lots available. And in terms of training or something like that, it's free. Yeah, no, you're going to have to pay for the training. But Readynez has this thing called unlimited training, where you can have effectively you pay a monthly subscription and you can attend whichever courses you want. I think I'm not sure the full details of it, but you contact Readynez on here. You can attend courses. I mean, I get people regularly on courses with this. So rather than just pay for one course, Hubert, like you did, you can come to multiples. So security training, yeah, so across all the entire Readynez piece. So that's on that. How many people have still got on board? So I'll just let me check the chat if there are any other questions. Oh, who's using AI on the course? That's really not very friendly. I use an interpreter, yeah, so maybe it translates for you. My experience with them is they're a bit random. Okay. So yeah, so thank you for joining us today. I'll be around if you've got more questions, or you can contact Readynez on how to get more information on that. But I'll see if I can make the slides aware. If I do, I'll paste them into the chat, or maybe Readynez can send them out to you. Readynez have actually done a feedback link, so please can you do the feedback link? It'll be useful for me. Just like I asked the question at the beginning, I found that very useful to understand where you were coming from. And again, a few of you use Azure Foundry. It's interesting. I gave a talk literally in September. We had covered some of the same topics, basically the difference between the different tools. Yeah, you're a slightly different audience to that, which is to be expected, basically because it's a Power Platform conference. But yeah, it's lots changing. So any more questions? I'm just going to scroll up to see if the chat has anything I didn't answer. Share the slides. I'll see if we can do that. Yeah, Lars has to train on the business process side. It's coming. It's probably not till January because they're going to have to write a lot of this. So there are new trainees coming for the AI. There'll be a lot of trainees coming. They're being written right now. As I say, I'm going to be writing some more for Copilot Studio. I was in a discussion. I've got to submit an estimate to Microsoft. Then it's got to go through an approval. Then they've got to. The bureaucracy is amazing. So we're planning a February launch for a whole new set of a 3-day Copilot Studio course. That's what we're planning to do. We're going to go fully into that. And and so just let you know that on there. Any other questions? Yeah, the training course are interesting because Microsoft, you say, oh, I can do this course, and suddenly you find out Microsoft withdrawing it and replacing it with something else. It's very much at that. We're at that stage. They're rapidly updating them. And they're also making lots of stuff. As I say, I gave you some links to some freely publicly available. And then the stuff on Microsoft Learn, I think I'm going to end up writing some new Learn modules because the ones they have are out of date. Even just they've tied up terminologies, that's changed, but other things are changing as well. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. I've got a couple more sessions.